Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lenine Livingston. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Fairbanks North Star Borough. Today is Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. We'd like to welcome you to our live address from Borough Mayor Bryce Ward, the State of the Borough address. So I'd like to give just a little bit of information about the flow of the afternoon today. We do have some members of the media here, as well as Mayor Ward, Chief of Staff Jim Williams, and some other support staff. We are broadcasting live from the Juanita Helms Administration Center from the Mona Lisa Drexler Assembly Chambers. We do have everyone social distanced and are wearing masks. So the event today, we will start with a short video that we'd like to share with you. That will be followed by a presentation by Borough Mayor Bryce Ward, and then we will take questions from our media partners that are here. And we would like to remind you that all official comments on the borough budget, we would like those made through the website fnsb.gov/budget. So at this time, we'll go ahead and run our short video, and we thank you for joining us today.
The Fairbanks North Star Borough is the place we call home. For some of us, we landed here by happenstance. For others, we came here on orders. And others still sought out this place in search of adventure. Regardless of how we got here, we chose to stay for similar reasons. Some say it's the cold weather and warm people, or the fact that if you get a flat tire or go in the ditch, before you get out of your car, someone will be there to help you. Others will say it's the access to the outdoors and passion for personal freedoms. Either way you see it, there is something that sets the interior apart from the rest of the world, and that is something worth encouraging and promoting. As a community, there are values that define us, that give us motivation and meaning. When I think of our community, I see the words serve, lead, thrive. Serve, to serve others through act or action. Lead, to be at the front, to give an example for others to follow. Thrive, to grow, to flourish, to prosper in all conditions. These values define us. They guide our interactions at the store, in school, at work, and with our families. I challenge you to serve, lead, thrive today.
We hope that you enjoyed our short video today. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Borough Mayor Bryce Ward.
All right, thank you, Lenine, and welcome everyone for being here today. Hope you appreciated that little video that we put together. We actually did that last year, pre-pandemic, so I'm getting a little bit of utilization out of that. There's three components to our press conference that we have today. First, we're going to go over accomplishments for this last year. As with the State of the Borough, we're going to go over the recommended budget, which has just been released on our website, and then go over the goals that we have for this upcoming year. I'd like to remind everyone that this information, as well as this video, will be available on our website, fnsb.gov/budget, and encourage you to go there to check out more information on our budget process. We also do have our timeline, which goes over the opportunities to engage with the Borough Assembly now that the budget has been released, between now and when that is between now and the eventual adoption of the budget in mid to early May. We also do have a town hall scheduled for April 28th with the Finance Chair, Ms. Williams, where we'll be going over the amendments and alterations that the Assembly has made to the recommended budget. So the little video that we just watched earlier, Serve, Lead, Thrive. You might have seen this in some of our publications and documents that have come out of the mayor's office and the borough. And so I just want to take a quick minute to talk about what this is and really where it came from. Serve, Lead, Thrive is the mission statement for the Fairbanks North Star Borough. It outlines the essentially what we're here to do. It came about a few months after I got into office. We sat down as a team here at the Borough with our leaders across different departments and really tried to dive into what does it mean to be a borough? What does it mean to serve our community? And who are we and how do we do that? And so through that process, we took a couple afternoons and really dived into these questions of what is it that we do here at the Borough? And that's where we developed the idea of our new mission statement, which was Serve, Lead, Thrive. We're here to serve our community. We lead by example. And then ultimately, we want to create a thriving community and one where our people can experience the fullest potential that they have available to them. Through this, we also came up with our core values, if you will, and our vision statement. So the core values that we established here for the Fairbanks North Star Borough are innovation, excellence, and community. So these are things that guide and motivate our team here at the Borough and the things that we do every day to serve our residents. Breaking Trail is a really interesting vision statement. It was one that we spent a fair amount of time on. It seems like we never really quite got to the pinnacle of what we were looking for. And then one day, it was actually the final wrapping up of the session. We came up with this idea that really our vision statement, which is what we want to be, what we strive to be, is breaking trail. And I want to use a statement from let's see here, a glossary of terms from the hiking book, from a hiking book. And it's this: breaking trail, a verb in the winter to hike in the lead position, forcing one's way through deep snow. It is far easier to walk in the tracks of someone else who has already broken the trail. And this really speaks to and what we strive to do here every day, which is to be better at the Fairbanks North Star Borough. And this is important because it really shapes the way that we interact with our community, the policies that we put together, and how we do what we do here at the Fairbanks North Star Borough. We may not be perfect, but we are continually striving to be better and to improve every day in how we serve our residents. So I'd like to talk now about the upcoming programs that we have, or excuse me, the past year accomplishments of what we've done here at the Fairbanks North Star Borough. So I'd like to start off by saying this last year has been challenging. As a community, we've grappled with the needs to follow sound medical advice in light of the pandemic, but also support the overall need that we have and the need and the desire of our community to have the freedoms that we so desire and so benefit from here in the Fairbanks North Star Borough. These are extremely important decisions, and consequences of poor decisions could literally cost us our lives or our freedom. And so we've taken a very deliberate position in how we develop those policies and how we really work to maneuver through the pandemic. Fortunately, I'd like to say that I think as a community, we have threaded the needle and been able to balance not only our community safety, but then also the freedoms in which our country is founded upon and which this community, the Fairbanks North Star Borough, thrives on. I have a quote in my office from Thomas Carlyle. It's up on the wall. And what he said was that the man with no goals makes little progress on the smoothest road, whereas the man with clear goals makes progress even on the roughest road. And I think in review of this last year, this can be particularly true for us here at the Borough. We've had a plan, we've accomplished some really great things, specifically in support of our mission statement to serve, lead, thrive, despite the pandemic. As part of our non-area-wide emergency declaration powers, this is the powers that exist in the Borough outside of the cities, we established in partnership with Foundation Health Partners and Tanana Chiefs Conference, the Interior Alaska Unified Command, the IAUC. This facilitated resource requests with the state of Alaska and was instrumental in supporting and developing, supporting local COVID testing, outfitting the Carlson Center, and eventually turning the Carlson Center into a vaccination pod, which we just had one of those yesterday. We also led our community by breaking trail and developing the COVID matrix. This informs decision makers on the health status of our community and provides transparency on how our decisions are being made. We also, this last year, distributed $23.5 million to community businesses and organizations through the CARES Act funding allocation that was provided to the Fairbanks North Star Borough. As part of that program, we developed 4 distinct programs. We developed the Business Interruption Grant, where we distributed $5,591,000 to businesses and organizations in support of their response to the pandemic. We also had the healthcare interruption or healthcare impact grant of $15,140,000 that was distributed. We had a PPE program which provided up to $1,500 to businesses to reimburse them for expenses incurred on PPE. And then we also had direct allocations to the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District of $680,000, and then the University of Alaska Fairbanks $2 million. As part of these programs, we were able to assist 280 businesses and organizations in the Fairbanks North Star Borough with 356 separate grants. These programs were developed in close consultation with the Treasury guidance that came out in order for us to protect our tax base in the event of an audit. The borough also put, with the support of the Economic Development Commission, developed the Interior Alaska COVID-19 Economic Impact and Recovery Plan. This plan established measures and established measured progress and outlined strategic goals on how we could get our community back on track after the pandemic set in. We really focused on 4 primary principles as part of that economic recovery plan: resiliency through innovation, strong local businesses, a safe and healthy community, and a fully employed workforce. The borough did suspend many of its services during the state lockdowns and based on the guidance given by CDC, but was soon back to work retooling our services to meet state and federal guidelines. Essential services such as the landfill, emergency operations, and emergency services did not shut down, but modified operations to ensure minimal disruption to our residents. Other services, such as our pools and libraries, have slowly been reopening to in-person services based on the ability of our staff to comply with the recommended protocols and ensure safety for the staff and the public. The borough also approved its first capital budget based on the new capital improvement program and began almost a dozen projects last year. The entire CIP is fiscally constrained and requires no new bonding. The biennial update will begin this fall, and the Assembly now requires 10% of local tax revenue that is collected to be presented in the mayor's budget as the contribution to the CIP-MR, which was previously known as the FMR. The borough also completed an LED relamping project in all of our schools. This project is scheduled to save the school district roughly $1 million a year in lighting cost. The borough also refinanced some of its debt last year in light of the low interest rates. This benefit to the taxpayer saves our taxpayers roughly $3 million over the life of those bonds. We also settled several key pieces of litigation. The Corvius property tax issue was settled last year, as well as extension of the property tax settlement with the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, which sets the value for the pipeline for up to another 5 years. The borough also redesigned and relaunched a new website with a new .gov domain. The changes to the website are designed to aid in utilization based on the navigation and where folks are going, as well as provide a more mobile-friendly and ADA accessible website. We also had a very exciting year in North Pole because the gas lines were turned on, and we have customers that are now connecting their homes to gas in North Pole. We expect this next summer to be a very busy summer in North Pole and Fairbanks as residents connect to the natural gas system. The state of Alaska was also awarded the Fairbanks North Star Borough a targeted airshed grant, which included over $10 million to the Fairbanks North Star Borough for wood stove changeout program. The total program funding for all sources for wood stove exchanges totals now almost $28 million. Funding for the newest TAS grant has not been appropriated by the Assembly yet. The borough was also awarded Phase 2 for the Transit Garage project to the total just under $10.5 million. This allows for Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the Transit Garage to be constructed as a single project. The second grant has not been appropriated by the Assembly yet. The borough was also awarded, as part of this project, a CMAQ, Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Grant through Fast Planning, which allows for the CNG refueling infrastructure to be built at the new Transit Garage as we convert our bus fleet to compressed natural gas. The Assembly also approved 2 very important ordinances. The first ordinance was 2020-06, which amended the Groundwater Protection Zone, GWP, by allowing for alternative compliance. This paves the way for many homes to come into compliance with Title 18 that were constructed with crawl spaces or basements in the North Pole area. The second was Ordinance 2021-03, which established an energy-efficient new construction tax credit program. This program is designed to incentivize new construction at a 6-star standard by offering up to $7,500 in tax credit for area-wide taxes paid in the upcoming year, or in that year. And this program has launched for last year's construction, and we are really encouraging folks to take advantage of it this upcoming year. The Borough has also had a substantial lapse in funds at the closeout of the FY 19-20 fiscal year, due primarily to COVID and the unexpected savings from closures, unfilled positions, and travel restrictions. Borough Code has since been amended through Ordinance 2021-14, which created a waterfall for lapsing funds should there be any lapse at the year end. This first funds the FMR, which is now known as the CIPMR, and provides changes to the purpose of the fund. This ordinance changes the purpose, the allocation that is required in the mayor's budget from 9% to 10% for CIPMR funding as well. And also ensures that if the Assembly does not appropriate the full 10% in the prior year, any lapse would first fund that at 10%, up to the 10% amount before it lapses to the general fund. These changes that were just recently made by the Assembly resulted in an increase to the general fund of just under $8 million and an increase to the CIPMR, previously the FMR, of roughly $2.8 million to meet that 10% threshold for last year. The Fairbanks North Star Borough is still suffering from the negative impacts of COVID, particularly the businesses connected with the tourism and hospitality sectors. The negative impacts of COVID have somewhat been diminished by the strong growth due to the F-35 mission expansion at Eielson Air Force Base. Overall, our economy has done well during the pandemic, and I believe will be strong in the future. However, statewide economic uncertainty has the potential to continue to undermine our gains in the local economy. Stability is key for growth. This is true at the local and the statewide level. For our budget, I've got a couple goals that I'd like to go over. These are goals that the administration has had in development of the budget that have really brought forth some of the key decisions that have been made in the recommended budget, which we'll be going over in just a minute. One is to maintain stability in services. 2, create efficiencies in the organization through automation and system improvement. 3, maintain or lower the mill rate. 4, encourage development and new construction in the Fairbanks North Star Borough. 4, remove barriers to development. And 6, streamline government processes. Now let's talk about the borough budget, the recommended budget that has just been recently released. The recommended operating budget for the Fairbanks North Star Borough is $173 million, The recommended budget for the Fairbanks North Star Borough is $173,496,346. This excludes our service areas and grants. This is roughly a 0.5% increase over the prior year. The proposed mill levy is 13.799 mills, which is down 0.092 mills from the previous year. The proposed budget accounts for 10% of tax revenue to go to the CIPMR, which equals $12,666,000. And takes into consideration the changes made in 2021-14. The Fairbanks North Star Borough recommended budget is balanced with a general fund contribution of $5,643,294, made possible by the large lapse from the last year. And I'll make a note that funding government with lapse is not a sustainable solution. However, it's an option that we're considering for this year. The Fairbanks North Star Borough budget assumes no support for the assumes no support from the state for school debt bond reimbursement, which would mean $7,863,383 to the Fairbanks North Star Borough. This is all being paid for by our current tax base. We are also proposing flat funding the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District of $49,045,400. Which is over the local required contribution of $31,864,300. The Fairbanks North Star Borough budget is balanced in part due to CARES Act funds, $5,307, which were used to offset transit division expenditures. It also allocates $150,000 for the Energy Efficient Tax Credit Program, which was recently approved by the Assembly. Changes in the borough budget also include moving 2 FTE from community planning to the clerk's office for meeting management of all borough boards and commission meetings. It also moves the FTE that was associated with the grants writer coordinator position in the mayor's office to the planning department for a new planning position to account for the increases in the permitting workload. We also instituted a new formula for providing funding to our EMS providers based on the number of calls and loaded miles driven. This is an increase to all of our EMS contractors in this budget. We also have changes to the economic development expense line item. We're changing those expense line items from the non-area-wide to area-wide to reflect economic development that is done on behalf of the entire tax base. So this is moving those expenses from non-area-wide to the area-wide basis. It also assumes full staffing and operations no later than January 1st, 2021, back to pre-pandemic levels. Land Management Division is renamed to the Natural Resources Development Division and is moving from the Assessing Department to the Mayor's Office. We also restructured the Information Technology Infrastructure Sustainment Reserve Fund, ITIS, to better reflect the technology needs over time versus part of the digital services budget. This is designed similar to the way that we do our CIP program for capital projects. We're using it for essentially capital technology projects. It also includes additional cleaning, advanced cleaning until January 1st, 2021 as part of this budget. Destination marketing is funded at $1 million for Explore Fairbanks. This is more than the code required 65% and actually approaches 100% of the bed tax dollars collected for the Fairbanks North Star Borough. This is in support of rebuilding the tourism industry here in the Fairbanks North Star Borough. We maintain a high delinquency rate of 3.5% for property taxes. Historically, that number is more around 1.5% to 2%. It includes allocation for contingency based on uncertainty on the ongoing Fort Knox valuation disputes. The recommended budget does not account for any American Recovery Plan funds, as we are still waiting on guidance from the Treasury Department. Any additional programs that come out of ARP funds will be done by supplemental appropriation. It also assumes full management of the Carlson Center by borough staff beginning July 1st, 2021. And with that, I'd like to call Donnie Hayes with the Pioneer Park forward for a presentation on the Carlson Center changes and what we're expecting for this upcoming year. Mr. Hayes?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. The Carlson Center has been an asset to the community for years and years. And with July 1st, this facility is the contract. Let me start again. As of July 1st, the contract for this facility is going to be over. And so over the last year, the Parks and Recreation Department has worked tirelessly to come up with an answer to the question of how should this facility be managed and what types of things should be in this facility. And so through a study that the Parks and Recreation Department went through, we were able to learn that the community desired for this facility to be accessed on a daily basis. And so to increase the access for the whole entire community. And so to do that, the Parks and Recreation Department has come up with our plan, the Carlson Center 2.0. Some of the things that we're looking forward to is continuing to have UAF Nanook hockey, go Nanooks. We're also looking at having community hockey continue to be in the facility and increasing also the use of the facility through bringing in the Fairbanks Youth Soccer during the fall and winter time. In the spring, we'll be looking at basketball, pickleball, and other sports and activities as space is available. One of the things that we found out through the study was there were some specific items that the community desired. One of those was an indoor playground and also youth after-school activities in classroom areas, something that the community felt like we were missing. And so Without a doubt, we began looking at options and ways in which we could fulfill that need. One of the ways in which to fulfill that need is we're going to create in the prow, which is the front area of the Carlson Center, an area called the Play Zone. This will be included young activities for students, or kids and families. It'll also include birthday party reservations and opportunities, multiple areas for the little kids to run around and enjoy some free space here indoors. We'll also be looking at what we're calling the Play Zone After Hours, which is, of course, one of those things that the community requested. We'll be looking at co-program team activities. We'll be looking at that also in the prow. We'll be looking at scheduling classes and activities, including teen-led activities like esports or open mic. These things are the types of stuff that our teens are looking forward to do. Now, the Carlson Center has always been a place where trade shows, expos, graduations, concerts, and community events have been held. And we expect for that to continue. We're lucky to have great organizations and businesses in this community that are looking for opportunities to be able to use the Carlson Center and continue to use the Carlson Center for these types of events. Lastly, in this plan, we were looking at some very specific goals to be able to accomplish. Number one, we were looking for a transition to move from a privately managed facility to a publicly managed facility. We were also looking to develop a schedule that maximized the usage of the building for community-based activities and events. We also wanted to operate the facility with a reasonable fee structure, one that all users could be able to access and that was also balanced across all of Parks and Recreation. We also wanted to create a sustainable plan that allowed for growth that was based on success. We absolutely believe that this facility will be a success, and we're excited to have that as part of our recreation department. We were also looking to recruit and develop external partnerships in such a way that will allow for all of our business partners to succeed and grow. And this will come in the form of contracts for concessionaires, for our continued partnerships with expos and events and activities, and lots of other opportunities for our business partners. And lastly, we wanted to make sure that we created a plan that was fiscally responsible. We believe that these plans are accomplished, or these goals are accomplished through this plan. We truly also believe that this is a shining example of a way in which Parks and Recreation is serving, leading, and thriving. If you would like to learn more about this opportunity, please go to fnsb.gov, go to the Parks and Recreation page, and there specifically is a Carlson Center plan available for people to look at and begin to learn about. Thank you very much, Mayor. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Great, thank you, Donnie. Appreciate that presentation. As part of our budget, we have taken a lot of consideration into the development of the Carlson Center plan. Mr. Hayes did speak to the resources we have available to the plan. As far as the budget documents are concerned, we have put together a plan that does require additional FTE. We've looked at the subsidy that the borough has paid to contractors to manage that facility in the past, and have been able to put a proposal together that is as part of the recommended budget, which includes roughly $150,000 increase in order to achieve the goals that Mr. Hayes just mentioned. And we'll be going over more of that with the Assembly tomorrow and then through our work sessions this weekend. All right. Let's talk about the future. What is coming up for the Fairbanks North Star Borough? The Fairbanks North Star Borough has a lot to look forward to. Over the next summer, we have additional 283 IELTS service members arriving in Fairbanks as part of the F-35 program. These airmen are on top of the 1,000 plus that we've already seen that have arrived in our community. The full entourage for the F-35 program is roughly 1,365 personnel to the interior. We also had recently received an announcement from the the congressional delegation that they've been working with the Air Force to secure additional KC-135s at Eielson Air Force Base. It's been announced that 4 additional KC-135 Stratotankers will be arriving at Eielson in FY23. These will bring an additional 200-plus jobs to the Eielson mission through an active association, which is something that our community has been working towards for quite some time. In 2017, the Fairbanks North Star Borough, through partnership with the Office of Economic Adjustment, OEA, now known as the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation, OLDCC, completed a regional growth plan to assess the many different aspects of the F-35 mission growth at Eielson Air Force Base. The regional growth plan took stock of our available housing inventory and figured that we needed to build around 100 plus units a year between FY18 and FY22 for the F-35 mission. As you can see, we still have Eielson members, we still have Air Force members arriving in our community, and the housing demand is still needed. Housing demand is expected to continue over the next several years as we push to meet the current demand and projected demand for the KC-135. Between now and the FY23 year, the community will need to construct several hundred new housing units. This does not include indirect jobs and MILCON associated with the build-out in those numbers. What we're estimating in the North Pole area, our current regional growth plan expects about 100 units a year to be built, and we are expecting about 50 to 60 more units a year to need to be built over the next several years to meet this demand. The borough economy does appear to be resilient to the blows of the pandemic, isolating drastic impacts to certain aspects of our economy. These areas, as we mentioned before, are tourism and hospitality, and will take years to recover and careful monitoring and potentially additional support. Other areas of concern in the future include the long-term stability of the state and the support for school debt bond reimbursement, education funding, and then valuation disputes, particularly with Fort Knox. The borough's largest taxpayer. As part of the upcoming projects that we are hoping to achieve as part of our growth plan for the borough is to lay out a sustainable plan for development and growth. What we're doing is to work on rewriting the comprehensive economic development strategy. This 5-year rewrite of the plan outlines key industry clusters and focuses policies and/or strategies on how to support and grow those specific industries. Preliminary work has already begun, and community engagement will commence over the summer for the comprehensive economic development strategy rewrite. The borough also received recently another grant from the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation, previously known as OEA, to assist the borough in updating our comprehensive roads plan and comprehensive trails plan. These plans assist the borough in planning for long-term development throughout our entire community. OLDCC also provided funding to update our land suitability analysis, which looks at land availability and developability in areas around the borough. We also are working on updating the roads and trails plan. The trails plan has a website that is available for folks to go and participate in that plan and the trails plan, and then the roads plan is actually just getting started right now. And this is really important for our community as we look to development, because it ensures that arterial connections and roadways are thought about as we begin to develop and grow as a community. Upcoming this summer, we also have secured work with a contractor to do a solid waste collection district educational campaign. There is a website, fairbankstalkstrash.com, fbxtalkstrash.com. Encourage folks to go there and find out a little bit more about the solid waste collection district. This is the transfer sites where we're going to go over what uses are appropriate for those transfer sites, who's allowed to use them, and how they're currently paid for. We're also working on a new Pioneer Park master plan that will identify a vision for what Pioneer Park should be and will provide actionable recommendations for how it should operate to best serve the needs of the Fairbanks residents and visitors. The master plan will serve as the primary guide for decision making about the park's future, and it will address basic deferred maintenance and economic sustainability for the park, basic deferred maintenance needs, and economic sustainability for the park, as well as lay out a new strategic vision to drive revenue growth and engagement. The master plan development process will include a park user survey, public engagement workshops, meetings with the advisory committee, and development of that business plan to help achieve sustainability of the park. The next community meeting for this is held on April 20th from 6 to 8 p.m., and more information can be found at fairbankspioneerparkplan.com, or you can find a link on our webpage, fnsb.gov, under the Parks and Rec tab. The Borough is expecting to see funds from the American Recovery Plan passed by Congress and signed by the President. The exact dollar amount is unknown for certain, and we are awaiting information on the Treasury to specify what the funds can and cannot be used for. ARP funding has not been accounted for in this budget and will be appropriated via supplemental appropriation. Programs will be developed based on the guidance for allowable expenses provided by the Treasury Department. We expect to see somewhere between $18 to $20 million for programs that will be authorized by the Assembly. Overall, a key component of my administration has been to find efficiencies and improve the fiscal position of the Borough, but also improve on the experience residents have with the Borough by streamlining processes and making the system easier to understand. This continues to be the goal for the organization as we continually improve to make our community a better place to live, work, and play while we strive to serve, lead, and thrive. There are several ways to engage in the budget process and provide feedback or general comments. Please visit fnsb.gov/budget to learn more about the budget process and submit comments, or find out when to attend one of the Assembly work sessions or public hearings. We have members of the media present in the chambers and are ready to take questions at this time. That's you guys. So we'll start with Ms. Bowen and then Alex.
Well, I'm just paging through the budget now, but can you talk about how many public employees you're adding in your recommended spending plan and why it's necessary to add to the government?
Great. So the question was, what FTEs are being added to the borough budget as part of the recommended budget that just came out? And I would look to Jim. We've got about six that we're adding to the FTE count for the Fairbanks North Star Borough. These are all primarily related to support for the Carlson Center management. Previously, we have paid a contractor to do this work, and it requires people in order for us to manage that facility now that we're going to be controlling it as of July 1st. Yes. Yes, so the question was what additional costs are associated with management of the Carlson Center. And so, Donnie, do you want to speak to the specifics on increases to the budget outside of the personnel line items?
I probably don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head there.
Okay, so yeah, so the general costs would outside of personnel would be in supplies and primarily in management of those activities. Things that have previously been paid for through the contractor, concessionaires, et cetera, are primarily the expenses that we're looking at. Also looking at transitioning from a enterprise fund. The Carlson Center previously was operated as an enterprise fund to a general government facility, similar to how we manage the Big Dipper or any of our other Parks and Rec facilities. Ms. Bowman?
Could you talk about, you mentioned something, my notes here, I think you said something about the budget assumes full staffing and operations back to pre-pandemic levels, and I just didn't understand quite what you said. Did you give a date when?
Yes, so for several of the revenue line items in the borough, they have been reduced based on the reduction in capacity for borough facilities, as well as some of the expense line items. And when we looked at overall development of the budget, what we assumed in the budget was that all of our operations would be back to full capacity at January, no later than, I should say, January 1st, 2022.
And on that same topic, if I might follow up, you mentioned that you were funding some surface cleaning. Could you talk about how much that's cost, what kind of cleaning that this budget funds, and why that's necessary given the new guidance by the CDC that it's a chance of 1 in 10,000 to catch COVID from a surface?
So the question was in regards to the additional capacity, the additional resources for cleaning, and I'm just restating for folks that are online. And so I think the dollar amount was $30,000 that we have for borough facilities as an increase over this in this budget to account for additional cleaning. You may have noticed in the building we've got someone that's walking around wiping down surfaces, doorknobs, elevator buttons, etc., in our other facilities. And so that was as part of the CDC guidance up until I think 2 days ago was to do these things. And so we accounted for that in this budget when we developed it. The dollar amount, though, is roughly $30,000.
And why do you think it's necessary?
Well, that was the recommended guidance according to CDC 2 or 3 days ago. So as part of our operations, we take into consideration the guidance that's been given by CDC and how we operate our facilities, as well as, which includes the cleaning protocols, et cetera.
You wouldn't want to update that then, or?
Well, at this point, the budget, we finalized those numbers several weeks ago. And so at this point, if there would be an amendment to the budget, that would be up to the Finance Committee, which they'll be taking up this Saturday. Alex?
The $1 million in destination marketing funding, as that's going to explore Fairbanks, is there any expectation as to where that money is going to go, and related, like how are we going to jumpstart the tourism industry? Where do you think that money should go?
Yeah, so the question was in regards to the bed tax grant that we provide to Explore Fairbanks. So this is just an extension of the grant that we already provide. The way that our code is written is that 65% of the collected bed tax revenue is provided to is dedicated for destination marketing, which has gone to Explore Fairbanks. In last year's budget, bed tax obviously took a significant impact because of the closures and the shutdowns from COVID. And so the Assembly, made modifications to the budget to keep that number elevated above the 65% of what we expected to collect for bed tax revenue, which was roughly $980,000 last year. And so as part of our budget going into the next year, this recommended budget, we're keeping that the same, basically at $1 million for destination marketing. So it's for the same activities that Explore Fairbanks has been doing to build the economy, for the tourism economy. It's the trade shows, marketing our community to other areas around the entire United States and then around the world. So many of the programs are going to be the same things that Explore Fairbanks has been doing, but we're really looking at maintaining that level. As I mentioned, 65% of what we expect to collect next year would be roughly $650,000. And so this budget basically is most of, if not all of our bed tax money that we expect to collect would go to that. Ms. Bowman?
You mentioned in your speech about moving the land management department and maybe changing the name. And could you clarify and give a little more details?
Yes, so we have moved the land management division into the mayor's office as far as structure-wise. It was previously under assessing. And what we found was that the operations of the department did not necessarily align with some of the functions that they provided. We also are proposing to change the name from from the land management division to the natural resource development division to reflect the work that that team does. They market the borough's land resources, but they also market the natural resources that the borough has, such as timber, gravel, et cetera. So it really speaks to the broader mission of what they do and how they provide those services and opportunities to residents within the borough.
Natural resource land management?
Make sure I get the... Natural Resource Development Division. Alex?
Assuming that, like any budget, this will be negotiated and debated by the Assembly, what are some of your specific priorities on the budget, things that you're particularly attached to with this fiscal year's changes?
So the question was, what are particular items that I'm concerned about in negotiations with the Assembly? Overall, the budget is relatively flat with the exception of the changes that we went over this year. I think particularly the Carlson Center is one that I think is of particular concern as we do not have a contract for management of that facility after July 1st. So we have spent a lot of time working with Parks and Rec staff to develop a budget that we think is workable with the Assembly. It is an increase over prior year amounts of what we spent for Carlson Center management. But I think in the end, the $150,000 price tag associated with that change brings a tremendous amount of value to the community, as well as provides a wealth of opportunities for that facility to be used by a lot broader spectrum of our community than it has been in the past. So that's probably the primary concern that I have going into this upcoming year budget. Looking at maintaining the mill rate is another concern. As I mentioned in the recommended budget, we do have a slight reduction. We are pulling on the general fund to the tune of roughly $5.5 million to balance the budget this year. That was made possible by lapse from the prior year. If the Assembly were to look at alterations or changes in that, my concern would be it would put us, if we were to not consider using the general fund balance, that would essentially leave our fund balance greater than it really needs to be at this point. Also would mean that we either are taxing too much to our residents, which I think are both non-desirable positions. Ms. Bowman?
I'm looking at the line item totals under borough-wide summary, and I see a few increases like 30,000 under communications, an increase of 10,000 for travel, about 8,000 for professional dues and meetings. Can you speak to that, why those increases are there?
So I don't know if I could speak to the individual line items you just mentioned. Just in general, we have had, like for professional licenses and then the travel component, many of our professional folks did not do the training that was required for their licenses this last year, or it was did not do what they would have liked to have done. And so this really speaks to the ability for them to keep those licenses maintained. I think we also do have a couple of folks that have joined us that are getting those licenses as part of that plan. Alex? Lenine?
Yes, I have a question from one of our radio media partners who is asking if you would address new coronavirus relief funds and how they might be one-time boosts to the borough budget.
So American Recovery Plan funds we are expecting to receive some of those funds. We are not sure exactly how much or what constraints do come with those. We are expecting them to be similar to some of the CARES Act funds that we received earlier this year, and are looking at development of programs along those lines. We're really hesitant to spend a lot of time developing programs right now, as we do not have the guidance from the Treasury yet. That is expected to come out at the end of the month. But we are looking at some of the programs, such as the infrastructure component, that do have more clear guidance on how we can move some projects forward that may be able to take that into consideration. I will add that when we looked at the CARES Act funds that the borough did receive, the prior CARES Act funds to ARP funds, a large majority of that, most of those funds, over I believe 95%, went out to either organizations within the community, businesses within the community, or in support of the contractor to manage those facilities, or those programs. So we're really unsure what would be allowed with the upcoming program. One thing that we are very interested in is revenue replacement was listed as an item that could be used for ARP funds, American Recovery Plan funds. I guess the good story as part of our budget is that we really did not see a dramatic decrease in many of our revenue line items despite the pandemic, with the exception of bed tax. Bed tax was the one that was really impacted by I think a magnitude of 50%. So we're definitely interested and see that as a potential for restoring some of those funds, which could go back to destination marketing and then help offset additional expense load on the general fund or taxes. Ms. Bowman?
Why is the mayor's office budget going up by $500,000?
Yes, so the change moving land management out of assessing and into the mayor's office is what resulted in that change. So if you look at the summary table in our budget, you'll see a reduction in the assessing department's line item of, I think, actually a greater amount than the increase that we're looking at in the mayor's office. So it's moving the division from assessing to the mayor's office and the associated FTEs.
I glanced at the fees. It looks like you're not looking at changing any user fees in your proposal. Can you confirm that? But I did see some added fees for the Carlson Center, and I didn't look closely, but can you talk about those fees a little bit, maybe?
Carlson Center fees or just fees in general?
Both.
Both, okay. Fees in general have been relatively stable. So I'm sorry for folks online. The question was on the fee schedule, are there any changes? So on the fee schedule, we do have minimal changes. Most of them are, I don't think there's anything that's substantial. Part of our program that we're rolling out this year is the cost recovery model that the Parks and Rec Division put together, which looks at tiers of subsidy for specific uses. And so the idea is that this year we'll start the conversation on those fees that we have associated with those services, and make sure that they're aligned to the correct tier for subsidy, and that goes from 100% subsidy up to no subsidy based on the user group. As far as Carlson Center fees, we have looked at as part of the fee structure, there is a new fee structure component for Carlson Center. This outlines full capacity utilization. It also it takes into consideration the partial usages, so ice time, specific room utilization, activities and events, and really works to align many of the fees for the Carlson Center with our other facilities, such as the Big Dipper and our other pools, the Pickle Barrel, etc. We did look at other facilities around the state of Alaska to look at competitiveness, to ensure that other publicly managed facilities, that we were in alignment with those. We also, as the model for public management of the Carlson Center, will look very different from the current operation where it's managed by ASM. We do have particular line items for chair rentals, for equipment rentals within the facilities. We're not going to be doing that work, whereas the previous contractor did. Okay, I do have a little bit to wrap up with here. If I can make sure and get to the right. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for participating. I hope this was informative. If you are interested in finding out more information on the FY 21-22 budget, please visit our website, fnsb.gov/budget. We have included an interactive tool, as we've used in prior years, called a balancing act, to give you an opportunity to improve on the budget and provide us with your feedback. You can also provide feedback and comments to the Assembly on the budget. We have on the website, we have our fillable form, our online fillable form that is available on that budget tab on our website. Or you're welcome to attend one of the Assembly Finance Committee meetings. We have one tomorrow evening where we'll have a presentation by our CFO, Ms. Debbie Brady. That's Thursday, April 8th, starting at 5:30 p.m. You can find the link online if you'd like to attend via Zoom, or you're able to attend here in the chambers. Just note we do have limited capacity here. I would also note that we do start our work sessions this weekend, and encourage the public to tune into those work sessions to find out a little bit more on the details of the particular line items in the budget. That starts Saturday morning at, I'm looking to Jim, what time does work session, 10 o'clock? 9 o'clock. So The work session starts at 9 o'clock, and we'll have a link to that on the website. Yes. So that's all we have. I really appreciate everyone's time today. Wish you the very best. And we do a quick plug for vaccinations. We do have vaccine clinics going on right now for the pandemic, and I believe they are transitioning to show up. What's the word I'm looking for? Walk-ins. If you'd like to attend, they are making those available for walk-ins. So thank you, everyone. Be safe and appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow.